Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being the show, I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Walking Dead. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're picking up with the Max and Eugene situation. Let's kind of start there first. Obviously, kind of get an understanding of Max's story that obviously she found the radio and obviously just by chance because someone threw it out, put things together from the parts from it and ended up, talking to Eugene. So it's fascinating how everything ended up playing out. And for her, like the only person who, at least at the time, the only person who knew was, her brother, because he discovered what she was up to, because there were some security breach when it came to the radio waves and stuff, because they could tell okay, someone's kind of doing their own thing, and obviously to protect his sister. I think their role in the Commonwealth, there's some stipulations there, because it's almost like Mercer's whatever we do, we cannot rock the boat. We are in this position and we benefited from it, but it's almost like it could always be taken away from us at any point in time. So we have to fight tooth and nail to keep this. I think that's she's the main reason why Mercer probably does what he does. Just like a lot of even Maggie, her siblings were always her sister at the very least was a very big part of a lot of her motivations, and obviously now that falls to her son, but I think it's just that familial connection ends up being a motivating factor for a lot of people. And I think in the long run, that whole aspect, because that's why I'm with stuff with Mercer, this episode makes you go yeah, he's definitely leaning more towards the Commonwealth comes with its good side, but because he's been with it for a while, he can recognize the bad, that it's just kind of yeah, not everything's so copacetic, bro. When he was talking to Daryl, because him and Daryl kind of hitting it off, but he says there's a reason why you're not in uniform and I am, because we both have our role to play. Because Daryl, it's all about optics. Because Daryl not in his uniform makes it seem hey, this is Daryl, one of yours. Come to. But if he came in wearing a uniform, it's oh, it's a little you kind of force him to. It presents itself a little differently, because if he's dressed the way he is normally just as Daryl, it kind of shows that maybe, he has freedom. It gives you the perception of freedom, even though he's working under Mercer and them, and there's a military police thing going on there where it's you have to kind of fall in line and follow the orders, that things are a little stricter at the Commonwealth than they kind of present. So, but circling back to it, sadly, Max found, obviously, Eugene, but by the time he got there, he was talking to someone else. So, I guess they never found, the reason why they got someone to play the role of Stephanie, probably when she came there initially, they were because Eugene was oh, I'm looking for Stephanie, all right, I want you to go out there and play the role of this Stephanie. So, she probably just waited for Eugene to bring up some of their moments together, during the conversations, and, she probably, let him, because the problem is, Eugene did all the talking. And the way he talks about it later on, it makes sense. It's right. He's I've never really been good at just being myself. Because, once again, and I referenced that recently, I think it might have been the last episode, about how Eugene's introduction to this show was him telling a bold-faced lie to Rosita and Abraham. Because I think that was at the time, Tara and Glenn were with them too. But it's those lies, because he wasn't confident in just being himself. And so, he expects rejection. So the moment, this quote-unquote Stephanie came to him, was oh, hey, I'm Stephanie. It's oh my God, he's I didn't notice the things that were obviously wrong, because it's oh my God, I get it. It's oh my God. Someone, because in his mind immediately he's oh, she's going to reject me. I know that. I'm the pessimist. I kind of have that nasty habit of oh yeah, any relationship. I had a girlfriend call me out in the past because I would be oh, it sounds so douchey and so emo-ish, but I used to write poems when I was in high school. And a girlfriend who would read the poems would be are you talking about us? Because I'd come at it from a very pessimistic point of view and be oh yeah, we're going to break up. So I'm it's a long-winded way of me saying, like, I get that mentality of just assuming the worst when it comes to a relationship. It's like, oh, there's no way someone's actually going to like me for me. And it's like, wait, you do? So you're not going to notice, like, oh, she would probably, like, let you lead a lot of the conversations about, oh, remember we talked about, yeah, oh, I remember that. That was so great. You know, she probably had Eugene, like, he's probably did most of the talking where she just listened. Because it definitely seemed like she was the type of person that she's kind of like the intelligence gatherer. So that's probably just like the role, I mean, con / you know, spy stuff that she was kind of doing this episode. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But obviously Eugene talks a little bit with Rosita about it, and Rosita's like, yeah, she's like, I never thought I'd be a cop, but I'm really good at it. But it is still the thing of both her and Daryl have that perspective of, yeah, it's good here, but you know, eventually like Alexandria will get built back up and we can go back home with all the resources and stuff like this. Like, we'll have built up this relationship and everything's going to be, you know, kind of going with the flow of things. And Eugene doesn't tell her because it's like, right, anything we get dragged into, it's my fault. Like, if you know the truth, all this is going to get taken away from you. Like, Hornsby will make sure it's taken away from you. Because for one, you guys won't be too copacetic if you know we were brought here under the falsest pretenses. Also, that I'm the one that led us into this false pretense, that I kind of, like, put us in this position for nothing because it wasn't even the real Stephanie. So that was the aspect of it. And I think those will play into elements, once again, because of, he even reminisces a little bit about, like, right, he's like, who I was, lying to you at the beginning, but, like, for Rosita, it's like, that was, like, another lifetime, so you don't have to apologize for that. It's like, okay, like, we're well past that, Eugene, after everything we've been through. So it's still that part of, like, right, I'm here lying to you again, but I have a different reason for that. That was out of self-preservation before. This is because this is the preservation of everyone else. The communities and people I care about are, you know, kind of got dragged in by, like, my getting duped. So why should you have to suffer for that? So it's like, right, I won't tell you the truth because that'll strip away some of, like, the happiness you have here. So I'm going to keep it low key and I'm not going to, like, ruin any of this for you guys. So he just simply was like, oh yeah, Stephanie and her and I broke up. She wasn't the person I thought she was, which Rosita's like, hey, then screw her. Like, you'll find someone that's the right match for you. And he did. It was Max. We find out Stephanie, she talked about it a little bit, but I think she said, like, Stephanie was, like, her mom's name is where the name came from, but there is no Stephanie. Obviously, her name is Max. So, obviously, Eugene opens up to her a little bit, and he apologizes for the way he was acting. Especially because Max was really hurt when she was like, wait, you let her read your book? Like, why couldn't you notice that wasn't me? That, you know, recognize the voice that, you know, and he's like, right, I didn't notice the inconsistencies because I was, but it's like, it doesn't excuse anything. And he's like, I'm sorry, can you give me an opportunity to apologize? And she's like, can you let me read your novel? It's like, I kind of burnt the only physical copy, but I do have it pretty much memorized. And he's kind of giving her blow by blow. And she's like, oh, that's really good. And it's like, oh, was it the lawyer or whatever? It's like, no, that'd be too obvious that everyone see it coming. She's like, yeah. And it's like, oh, making an evil twin brother. And it's like, oh, you could really, like, lean into, like, the nuclear, like, espionage angle too. And he was like, and that's exactly what I did. I'm like, them both laughing. I'm like, you two immediately are super adorable. So I'm assuming this is going to be like a low-key thing because probably like the moment Hornsby finds out like, oh, you're dating someone and like it's Max, and it's going to be like, wait, was Max Stephanie? You know, that's going to probably lead to a whole thing. So they're probably going to have to keep this low-key, not just from Hornsby and just the Commonwealth in general, but also from like Mercer, because I'm sure he's not going to be too copacetic about that, especially knowing how their relationship began with the radio stuff. So he would probably want her to keep as much distance from Eugene because he wouldn't want anyone to take the chance that someone would find out. So there's that angle to things. Another aspect in the whole Commonwealth situation is Ezekiel. He's getting his checkup, but then told me, is like, yo, getting you prepped for surgery. He's like, what? I was like the bottom of the list. It's like, yeah, things worked out. It's like, well, how much do I have to pay? It's like, well, nothing. It's all been squared away. Jerry's super pumped, but Ezekiel's like, no. Like, because he knows and that ends up being a major theme in this episode. Nothing in this world is for free. So for him, it's like, no, like, there's got to be something more to do. But Jerry's like, it doesn't matter. Like, shouldn't you be happy? You get a new lease on life. Everything's going to be great. But then, you know, he runs into Carol later on and is like, what did you do? And she's like, I did Hornsby a favor. It's like, But for him, the problem is, for her, it's like, hey, because I care about you and I don't want you to die. It's like, do you think Pamela, if her shitty son was at the bottom of the list, wouldn't she still do everything for his sake? Like, she cut off his finances at one point in time, as we heard, like, with that flashback at the beginning with Max. Like, it's like, yeah, that's as much as Pamela does, because she tries to do the tough love thing. But at the end of the day, every mother, well, I can't say every mother, but that motherly instinct kicks in, I think, for a good chunk of people. I'm not going to sit here and say that for everybody, because it's not for everybody. I think, but I think at the end of the day, despite him being the spoiled, shitty person that he is, she still loves and cares about him. But it is the thing of, yeah, like, Carol just wants to do the same thing for Ezekiel, because she's like, lesser men have gotten more and done nothing with it. You, Ezekiel, are not a lesser man. He's always been a good person from the very introduction to him, the way he ruled the kingdom, how he cares about his people, Henry and Henry's brother. Like, he is the person that he is. He is the reliable person that they've been allies and friends with and comrades, and that was kind of, they were partners, and, in both, like, a friendship way and then also an intimate way, for a very long time. And so, but for Ezekiel, what bothers him is, like, I'm only getting this special treatment because it's cheating. But that's also the sad thing of it. Like, I mean, that in itself could be a commentary in the real world of, like, yeah, you have enough power and pull, you can make anything happen for you in the real world. And it's like, yeah, why would the apocalypse stop that angle of commerce from happening? Of, like, yeah, you get enough handshaking and hand waving and backdoor deals that, like, you can make anything yours and make anything happen. But for Ezekiel, it's not fair, because it's like, I think maybe there's some part of himself that had already committed himself to death, knowing that it would be the end. But also knowing, like, right, like, I shouldn't get special treatment because there are so many other people in that hospital who are sick, who are in the same position as me, who are literally looking for the same treatment as me. Why should I get it faster than they did? And they've been on the list longer because they've waited their turn, and I just get to jump in front of everybody. He just reluctantly takes it at the end. So it's like, Jerry's like, yeah, we'll have ice cream and pizza waiting for you. And he's like, no, Jerry, better not be any pineapples on it, because pineapple on pizza makes no sense. I think I've had pineapple on pizza, like, once my entire life. I never hated it. It's just like, that's just not my cup of tea. I think I'm probably more of I like sausage and pepperoni and some, like, ham, I guess. I had a Snickers pizza one, because there's, like, a pizza place in my hometown, well, near my hometown, would, like, have, like, God, I don't even remember the place's name. I haven't been home in years, so I don't even know if it's still there, but it used to be like one of those buffet places where, like, they would make, like, really weird pizzas. So, like, there was, like, a Snickers pizza. But yeah, I'm kind of a pepperoni and sausage dude. Probably, I definitely lean more pepperoni. But regardless, going on tangents and all that. But, like, I'm one of those people like, I don't mind. Once again, I've only had it, like, once, maybe twice, but I definitely know, I can only think of one distinctive time I've had. But maybe I've had it, like, but it's only, like, a handful of times at most. Regardless. But you can tell, like, that look on Ezekiel's face. He's accepting it, but it still rubs him the wrong way. So we'll see what the aftermath of that all ends up being, where that ends up taking us. But other than that, a big crux of this episode is Lance going on his tour with Pamela to be like, oh, let's check out Alexandria. It's like, yeah. And they're supposed to, once again, it's all about presentation and everything. And it's like, Aaron's like, all right, like, stop, cover up that broken window. They're trying to make the defenses seem like, they're trying to make Alexandria seem like better than what it was. We learned a lot of interesting stuff that Pamela actually knew Deanna, which was interesting. It's like they had crossed paths in the past and stuff like that, and she's like, oh, like, what kind of leader was she? And Daryl was like, she was really good. And it's like, oh, you admire her? And it's like, yeah. Thinking about, like, despite the bumpy road of when they first came to Alexandria, it's like, she welcomed us here, even with those, it was kind of a rocky road, but she welcomed us in here, and we became a group. Like, she led this place with such honesty and heart. And it's like, eventually, like, oh, how'd she die? She was bitten, so they had to put her down. And obviously seeing a wall, because obviously Alexandria's kind of been through it, and it's like, wait, has it happened more? Has this place fallen more than once? And he's like, and Daryl was like, yeah, it has. It's like, yeah, it has. Because once again, Alexandria got introduced back in season 5. And this show's been through a lot over the years. Whether it's them coming to town, the saviors, the whisperers, just walkers in general, the place has had its struggles. But obviously, Alexandria didn't put the best foot forward. They tried to, but it's still like the place is just kind of run down after everything that they've been through. Then, like, the Oceanside is like, oh, Oceanside. Oh, wait, Hilltop didn't make a deal with you? Yeah, we kind of have a deal with Maggie. Maggie's always, like, Alexandria's doing what's best for them. Hilltop and Oceanside have always had a good relationship, so we're going to keep up our end of the deal with Maggie. So, like, if Maggie and Hilltop decide to sign on with you, so will Oceanside. So it's like, cool. So Alexandria, not looking so great. Oceanside is kind of looking, well, not good at all because they turned down the deal. So Hilltop's like the last thing, and now it's like Hornsby is chewing out Aaron, being like, yo, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen? And he was like, dude, I'm what am I supposed to be, a mind reader? It's like, right, it's an all or nothing thing with Pamela. So if you don't get Hilltop on your side, you don't get Oceanside, and Alexandria doesn't get our help. That will pull out. So it's like, cool. And it's like, we'll manage to make it work somehow. And Hornsby's like, yeah, because you guys were doing so good beforehand. It's like, shut up, dude. They hit rough patch after rough patch after rough patch. It's like, they had to deal with the Whisperers, the aftermath of just like the continuous threat of walkers, plus nature itself with the rain and the storms. It's like, come on, dude. Plus, like a freak lightning storm striking a tower to catch on fire. It's like, come on. Like, everything, when it rains, it pours, both figuratively and literally in that regard. So it's like, yeah. So now it becomes like an ocean. Well, they go to Hilltop, and now it's a conversation because we have like Diane, Lydia, as well as Elijah are with her as they're dealing with some. I'm such a damn idiot. Wasn't she in Vampire Diaries? Lauren Cohen. Why am I only realizing that now? Because I forgot she was... No, yeah, she was in the Vampire Diaries. I don't remember if... They might have been... Yeah, because I think Klaus was already introduced at that point in time. Because wasn't her character named Rose? Because, like, she was in Supernatural and Vampire Diaries, and she, like, her characters died, like, only being in the respective shows for a little while. I want to say that was it. It's been forever. That was like early-ish Vampire Diaries too. I'm like, I didn't even think about that till now. Every time I think of the name Elijah, I can't help but think of like the Vampire Diaries and the originals. But I was like, wait. I think I want to say the originals were around the time she was, because I know like there was a thing going between her and Damon, and she ultimately ended up dying from like a werewolf bite. But I think it's because Klaus wasn't around to heal her, because he was the only one at the time that could cure vampires from a werewolf bite. I want to say, like I said, I could be mistaken. I want to say that was Lauren Cohen. I think I remember that whole point of, like, yeah, she was in Supernatural and she was in the Vampire Diaries. I want to say that was the case. Once again, that was years ago, so I could be misremembering. Like I said, that just triggered a part of my brain. I was like, was that a thing? I don't remember. Now I think it was, but I'd have to look through her filmography again to really kind of figure that out. Okay, real quick Google and Wikipedia search. Yes, she was in Vampire Diaries. Her character's name was Rose. If I said that before, I think I did. But regardless, now that that's cleared out of my head, I can move past this large tangent. But nevertheless, the point is that it was an interesting interactions between Pamela and Maggie. Basically, like, from one leader to another. The fact of the matter is, Maggie wants things to... Like, she wants to be remembered and seen as a leader who... For what she's done. Rather than, like... Because it's like, right, like, her and her people stand on same footing. Whereas, like, things aren't the same thing for Pamela and the Commonwealth. Because it's like, right, not everyone has the car and the privileges that she does. Once again, kind of like this disparaging, like, thing between, like... Oh, like, status and stuff like that in the Commonwealth. There's, like, no thing like that outside... with like Hilltop and Alexandria and stuff like that. So, like I said, I thought that was kind of fascinating, those conversations. And obviously at the same time, Hornsby is trying to lay it on thick. He's like, giving whatever support he can, because he's trying to smooth this over, because it's like, right, this is kind of looking a little rough, but if I can get things changed around, especially because Pamela likes, she likes Maggie and Maggie likes Pamela too. And so, like, everything seemed like it was a little more copacetic, especially because it's like, right, the resources, it's like, right, brought food, they went hunting, and it's like, right, they could keep building stuff without worrying about threats, because it's like, right, they got ammunition and weapons, and the fact is that, with this type of support, like soldiers being here, it benefits us, it helps us a lot. So Maggie sees the benefits of it all, but then she sees just the interactions and stuff, and I think it kind of leans into what's kind of coming up in the Commonwealth, where it's like, oh yeah, like the whole aspect of what was it, Pamela ordering them around, and the whole aspect of the military or the soldiers or whatever kind of responding to more to politicians and rather than doing like their civic rights and duties. So it's kind of that, I think, angle to it. And then also seeing like Daryl having to comply because like Mercer was like, yeah, people are watching, so you kind of have to fall in line, dude. So I think a lot of that just like, right, like how much you have to compromise, how much of yourself and your freedom, everything they didn't know. Like Rosita was saying, like it parallels itself with like Maggie seeing like the freedom to be stripped away, that you'd have to be, you know, adhere to like this status system that exists in the Commonwealth, and now you kind of already see the groundwork of leading, like, okay, so I can definitely see how we get to where we were, like, you know, after that 6-month time skip, which it's been like, we're still like potentially still 5 months away. Time frame wise, we don't know how much time it's still kind of passed in between then and there now. We know like in episode 9 it had been, they were there for a little over a month, but we don't know how much passed in between 9 and 10. We know 10 and this episode are picking up immediately after each other, so yes, there are a lot of benefits, but it's just like, and like Maggie decides to turn down the deal, and it's like, but why? And she's like, just like you said, everything comes at a cost, because her whole point was like, obviously like 15 million smaller communities can't make a difference. But basically, if we put everything together, which very much sounds like a civic republic kind of thing kind of going on there. Because once again, like from what we know, it seems like that might be, the Commonwealth is probably the second. I mean, you don't know all the communities out there, but I'd say like the Commonwealth is probably like the second, and obviously the Republic is the largest group. Obviously, they have a military of their own, so whether those two will cross paths by the end of this season, who knows if that's a thing. But you get a big enough group like the Commonwealth, you think that would attract attention from the Republic or not, but who knows. Which, you know, there are... obviously, another element to this is consequences. And Maggie making her choice, sadly, there are consequences. Diane decides to leave with some of the others, and it's like, I'm sorry, Maggie. Like, she's like, I respect you. The fact is, because it's like, right, Maggie's like, we gotta be careful who we trust, because that can come back to blow up in your faces. It's happened from time to time. Because even Daryl's he's like, yeah, like, I don't trust these people. I mean, when do I ever? So it's like, right, we're just trying to fill it out. But Maggie doesn't trust them at all. But Diane's like, I get that, but sometimes you have to ask for help, and so she leaves, and she hopes that Maggie will change her mind and come too. But I think in the long run, Maggie is doing the right thing in the long run, because once again, it's not just Pamela, it's Hornsby in particular I don't trust, especially the way like he tries to like, because Maggie kept being like, what are you getting out of it? He's like, no, like, you know, it's like, yeah, we're all in this together type of thing. Like it's like, no, like you are getting something out of this, because even Pamela's like, right, if we bought these 3 communities, and it's not one community bringing in, it's 3 different ones, someone had to basically manage them. And he was like, yeah, and that will be up to your discretion, obviously. And she's like, obviously. But she's like, I see what you're doing, you as, you know, Max and, you know, Eugene called him a snake, Max called him a worm, but we see the opportunist that he is. So that's why he wanted this. He's building an army, he's building power and influence, because I think he's trying to, I believe, like, in wholeheartedly, he's trying to snatch the Commonwealth from Pamela, because I think he probably thinks, like, right, I have to adhere to your nonsense and that son of yours, Sebastian, is like, no. It's like he's making a power grab, like all that secret stuff he's up to. Once again, I think I think he's manipulating all the people who feel dejected amongst the Commonwealth. And he's like, oh, I'm trying to be your champion. But it's like, no, he's just another politician that, yes, he's trying to make it seem like, yeah, Pamela and the way she runs things is an issue. The moment I'm in power, I'm going to run things different. It's like, no, he is just out for himself, you know? I legitimately do believe that Pamela does care about people. Maybe she hasn't always handled things the right way. You know, heavy is the head that wears a crown and everything. Because she says, like, right, like, I have, like, so many people to look after. The fact is, I barely get to sleep because I'm always wondering, like, you know, what could go wrong and stuff like that, so... I'm surprised Lydia didn't leave, because she did have that conversation with Daryl about, like, right, so if we, how do you know when's the time to give up, essentially? And Daryl was kind of basically telling her, like, you'll know, like, do you want to leave? And so, obviously, this is all she's known. Plus, like, despite everything, it's like, I'm sure she probably feels still a little off, because, like, the people she's closest to are Daryl, somewhat pretty decently close with Carol, and then Negan were the people she was closest to, and all three of them aren't there right now, so that makes it a little harder. But I think you also add in just, like, the circumstances of Hilltop. So Elijah's not going to leave because he's loyal to Maggie. Like, they're kind of all they have left now. So I see them kind of sticking it out together. But it's still going to become pushed come to shove when things get really, really bad. Especially when the Commonwealth comes knocking. I think that's probably going to be that's not going to be a Pamela decision. That's probably going to be a... Hornsby decision that he's probably going to set some stuff in motion to get it, like, because she basically told him, like, right, if you fail, like, you could do all this, but the moment it starts affecting your work back at Commonwealth, she's like, oh, there's going to be consequences for it. So he's off telling Arian, like, nah, everything's good, everything's copacetic, and him killing like that with the gun, I'm like, he's got to be gunning for, like, Pamela's head or something. Like, he's got to remove her from the equation. It's the only way he's going to get what he wants in the end. That ambition of his is going to be not just his undoing, a lot of people's undoing, I can tell. So, but like I said, him lying to Aaron, be like, nah, it's all good, like, things are going to be great, we're going to change the world. So we'll see how all that ultimately ends up playing out as we go forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.